All right, tonight we have another edition of West Michigan Stories.
This time we're in Kalamazoo County and the community of Galesburg, where we are finding some unique history down there. Fox 17's Kevin Craig standing by for us live tonight.
Christian, Michelle, thank you very much, and good evening once again, everybody. We're live in the Historical Museum in Galesburg. There's a ton of stuff to be found here, and this is one of the perfect examples. It's the old train depot. You can see, and we pointed this out last hour, that's when Galesburg used to be spelled with an H in it. The old train coming in, they had the main railway system, then they had something called the interurban. Keith Martin is joining me now. He's in the part of the Historical Society here in Galesburg. Keith, thank you very much. You have some unique things here, and one which is quite rare. Tell me about it.
Well, we're very proud because our museum actually has something that probably very few museums show. Most people don't understand about the interurban being electric powered. In the city, that was always overhead wires, but in the country, they ran on what was called the third rail. And people wonder, what's the third rail? Well, it's a 600-volt live piece of steel that the interurban ran with as far as power. And we have it right down here, a picture, or we actually have a display of the third rail, and it's very rare.
Let's take a look, and here it is. This thing weighs a ton too, by the way. It's just really solid steel, very, very heavy, but that's something you wouldn't see in too many other places. Is it fair to say, Keith, that I personally would equate the interurban to like the old streetcars that ran in Detroit and Chicago? Is that a pretty good guesstimation?
It is a very good guess. The thing is, with the interurban, though, it went from city to city, right, and it was to compete with the railroads. Unfortunately, the interurban era was 1890 through like 1930. It was also the era of the automobile. So as the roads became better built, people chose the car over the interurban. But certainly from 1900 through 1910, it was a preferred way of traveling because it was very fast and very convenient.
Gotcha. And you're holding it quickly. Here's a picture of, is this the interurban here then?
This is the one in parchment. The only reason I use this picture, there are very few photographs of the actual third rail. Mm-hmm. And this is the rail, two rails that the interurban ran on.
And this is the piece that we have right here.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
And see, it runs on these insulators. That's 600 volts of live electricity. So if you stepped on it, you were dead.
Ooh. Now listen, you're part of the Historical Museum, and a good friend of yours is also part of it too. Kay Maxon. He's been in this town for a long time. Probably one of the perfect people to walk us through the museum. Take a look at the piece and you'll see exactly what we're talking about, because there's a lot more here.
It seems every town has at least one person who's known by everyone or is the go-to guy for historical information. In Galesburg, that man is Kay Maxon. He's owned and operated the Maxon Insurance Agency for decades, and his grandfather owned a blacksmith shop in the early 1900s. That's Kay's dad as a young boy and his grandfather on the right. This old train and depot photo shows the way Galesburg was originally spelled with an H, which was dropped in the early 1920s. They had an old hardware store. Roll-Off Dairy delivered products by horse-drawn carriage. And here's a photo of Burgess Seed employees, the biggest employer in Galesburg from the 1920s through the 1950s. But what created the boom?
The transportation in Galesburg was US 12, very, very popular because of the Fort Custer area and other things here in the territory. And US 12 was naturally the highway between Chicago and Detroit.
Keep in mind, Galesburg was the halfway point between the two cities, and this was long before the construction of I-94 in 1958. The city also had what they called interurban transportation, similar to a streetcar. Maxon is the treasurer for the Historical Museum. It's small, but is jammed with everything from railroad artifacts to an old schoolroom to the tools his grandfather used as a blacksmith.
We have an original 1863 flag. It has 35 stars, and that's what they were back in 1863. It is a 9x15, too fragile to hang. In our military corner, we have uniforms from World War I. We have them from World War II, we have them from Korean conflict, and up-to-date uniforms, all donated by local veterans. We have an old original Westinghouse 1954 clothes dryer and the original manual that came with it. A 1915 General Electric refrigerator, and back then, for insulation purposes, they used cork. That's the reason the door is so thick.
The museum also has an early 1900s living room, dining room, bedroom, and one of the first TV sets from the 1940s, as well as an old-time radio. Don't forget the Victrola. That's a phonograph where records would play. Galesburg enjoyed plenty of success before I-94 was built. It wasn't until the 1960s that the city began to lose population, going from the beaten path to being off the beaten path.
We're back here live in the Galesburg Historical Museum. I've been trying for 2 hours to get Fox 17 on this TV set, but I don't think there's a converter box or it's not HD compatible. Of course, it is more than 75 years old. Hey, got to tell you a couple of quick factoids here real quick. Originally occupied by the Potawatomi Indians in Galesburg here, and it was visited by French fur traders as well. They received village charter in 1861, and they became the city of Galesburg in 1931. A couple of other facts. You can always get more information, Rick, by going to fox17online.com. I've got a full story there with links to this museum. They're only open on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so check all that out. And by the way, it's free.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm just glad that TV doesn't get 8.